All right, y'all, welcome to the show. So today I have some amazing polling data for you about how unpopular Trump is. We've had some really bad polls vis-a-vis Biden, but now the Trump ones are honestly just as ugly, and in this instance, kind of uglier than what we've seen about Biden. I also have this massive anti-Trump Republican effort. They're going to spend tens of millions of dollars trying to defeat Trump in the general election. I thought that was really interesting. Ben Shapiro manages to piss off like 90% of the people who watch his show by launching an all-out attack on the idea, the whole notion of retirement. It's like, are you trying to be as unpopular as you could possibly be? Then later on, we'll get into Katie Porter is smugly smeared by CNN because she dared to say that her election was, quote, rigged. My contention is that they're being dense on purpose and trying to pretend like they don't understand the context of what she was saying and what she meant. I think it's very obvious. So we'll get to all that and more. Oh, and there's going to be a segment you don't want to miss. Remember Katie Britt, the Republican who did the State of the Union response? Well, she is out there throwing a pity party for herself because, literally nobody thought she did a good job. So that's fun, and we'll have a good time covering it. So everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps out massively in the algorithm. And let's dive into it here. So this is in Newsweek. Donald Trump stung as new poll shows how unpopular he is. Donald Trump continues to have a low favorability score among Americans, new polling shows, despite being the likely Republican nominee after winning the lion's share of primaries and seeing off his only remaining rival. An ABC News Ipsos survey of 536 U.S. adults conducted between March 8th to 9th found that 29% have a favorable view of the former president compared to 59% who view him unfavorably. Now, look, you might say, well, Kyle, 536 people, that's not a very big poll. I agree with you. That's not a very big poll. Now, to be fair, a lot of the other polls that I've referenced on this show as it pertains to Biden, they have about the same number of people involved in the poll, right? It's not a particularly outside the realm of reason for what a lot of polls are. But having said that, guys, 29% is where he was in the immediate aftermath of January 6th. So we're talking height of Trump unpopularity, where everybody and their mother thought, hey, this guy just tried to do a coup. This guy is dangerous. This guy's been downplaying the results of the election. He gave a speech about going to the Capitol. Then, wow, would you look at that? Violence erupts at the Capitol. This is when even some, I should be clear, because others were just totally sycophantic all along, but even some Republican politicians were like, this is unacceptable. Mitch McConnell, remember Mitch McConnell gave a speech like, oh, unacceptable, the former president has done. We're at that same number. 29% have a favorable view. You know what else this is like? George W. Bush on his way out the door. After doing 2 illegal wars, plunging us into a giant recession, doing torture, massive tax cut for the rich, he was at 29%. This is how low Trump has gone. Wow. So they continue here. It came after Trump secured all but one of the primaries on Super Tuesday, giving him 1,075 out of 1,215 delegates he needs to become the presumptive Republican nominee, which prompted former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley to drop out of the race to leave him unopposed. Primaries being held on Tuesday could push Trump over the line. I know Biden got over the line. I'm not sure if Trump did, but if he didn't, he's right on that edge anyway. Trump's popularity has remained largely unchanged since last summer in similar polls conducted last year, which have a margin of error of 4.5% either way. He has hovered around a 30% favorability rating. That rating dipped to 25%, with 61% viewing him unfavorably at the start of April last year. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the beginning of last year, he was at 25% in a poll. Jesus. Most of the polls I've seen of him are high 30s or just 40, right? Like, that's what I've seen. And that's roughly like where Biden is. Once you get in the 20-some-odd percentile range, woo! Damn, man. So, Biden had one last week or a couple weeks ago where he was at 33% favorability. And I think in this same ABC Ipsos poll, They say some 33% viewed the incumbent favorably to 54% viewed him unfavorably. So Biden appears to be hovering anywhere from that 33% number, which is the low I've seen for him, and that's what this one shows, to like 38, 39. By the way, horrible. We're talking more unpopular than Jimmy Carter before he got waxed. So, like we always say, a race to the bottom. But understand something, guys. 29% for Trump. Now, to be fair, when you go to specific issues, there's a different breakdown, right? So you bring up like immigration. Trump's above water. They trust him over Biden on that. The economy. Trump is trusted over Biden. There's actually some where Biden is trusted more, like, democracy. These views like, yeah, he'll uphold our democracy, whereas the other guy, oh. So it depends on the specific topic you look at. But having said that, I don't know of a single incumbent president or political candidate who's won being at the numbers that these guys are at right now. Again, Biden 33, Trump 29. Never seen it. And then the other question is, well, we know everything going on with Biden and how we can explain him being as low as he is, right? The backing of Netanyahu's genocide in Gaza is one thing. Honestly, his age is a huge thing to normies. There's a bunch of things we could point to as to why Biden's really unpopular right now. But this recent plunge in the numbers for Trump, what do you attribute that to? Now, I'll give you guys my theory. You can tell me what you think. But for the past couple months at least, every time Trump's name is in the news, it's him like being found liable in civil court for various things. So recently you had the E. Jean Carroll case. He has to pay $83.3 million over that. He did sexual assault and then he defamed her after the fact. $83.3 million. I mean, I think the normie reaction is you look at that and you go, he must have did something wrong if he's got to pay $83.3 million to this woman, right? The New York case, tax fraud, insurance fraud, business fraud, all that stuff. He's going to have to pay over $400 million for all of these just civil trials. We're not even talking about the criminal ones yet. And so my guess is, with that being all over the news all the time, I mean, the laws of political reality apply to him just like anybody else in a sense, even though he seemed above it for a long time. But no, I mean, think about it. If there was headlines all the time about Biden having 91 criminal charges, or Biden having to pay out $83.3 million because he did sexual assault and then he defamed the person, or Biden having to pay over $400 million in a fine because he did tax fraud and insurance fraud and business fraud, in that scenario, I think his approval rating would be even lower, right? So that's my theory. That's like one of the main things. The other thing is, he's at the point now where the more he's in front of people, the worse he does, right? Now, the Republican base loves him. That's never going to change. I think that's clear. But everybody else, everybody who's not already in the club, hears him talking, they're like, ugh, right? So it's legal problems, and then the other half the time, he's out there on the campaign trail saying he wants to pardon all the January 6 people, saying he wants to terminate the Constitution, whatever other madness comes to his mind, saying the election is rigged. So I think always being in people's faces with the rallies, and then plus the legal problems, I mean, I think that would probably explain why he's so low. Also, maybe, his feud with Nikki Haley. It's not like Nikki Haley has a lot of supporters. She doesn't, but solid 25%, 30% of the Republican base, and you're out there shitting on this person who's your opponent. Well, how's that going to fare when you guys need to come together, right? When it's the general election, and this is something Trump should have learned a lesson from himself, where there are times in the past where he would take somebody who's his opponent and try to be clever. Like, remember when he tried to do some like socialist for Trump thing in 2020? You guys remember that? And Biden even is right now is doing this whole, Nikki Haley supporters, hey, you want to come to us? We'll welcome you over here. So he's being more exclusionary, and that could hurt, right? That could in part explain the 29%. I'm not exactly sure. Curious what your guys' theories are, but man, this is tied for a historic low for Trump. Tied for a historic low. And given all that, this is why you've seen a string of polls recently. But I think there were 3 polls in a row where Biden was up on Trump. Now, to be fair, it was like 2 points. It was within the margin of error. But this is the first time in a long time there were like consecutive polls where Biden was up on Trump. But either way, it's going to be a razor-thin election because usually the Democrat in recent history has had to win the popular vote by like 4 points in order to win the electoral college. So it's a razor-thin election, but as we always say, it's a race to the bottom. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.